Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Reset. Right, okay, hello, yes, I feel I need to clarify something before we go any further. First of all, this is not the hilarious skit that you may have been expecting at the start of the Weekly Reset, because we hit a bit of trouble this week. All my bits, the best bits, were written and recorded as planned, and we're going to show those to you now, my bits. But literally, the minute we were about to start recording Evitel's segments, she got called away on a work emergency, and she's still there now. So that means no sassy Evitel to camera bit, no us chilling on the sofa bit, and no hilarious intro. And that's a shame because I've thought about it, and I'm pretty certain that this week's intro was the funniest intro we've ever done. But you're just gonna have to take my word for that because you'll never ever see it. Ah well. So with all of that in mind, please accept our apologies and enjoy Tally's my unusually long segment today about the 8.2 release and the stats squish and how it would work. And I will be back at the end to mop up and to give you a special breaking news BfA experience Nerf controversy that wouldn't have even been in this episode if the Evi emergency hadn't held us up. So you know what? Maybe it worked out okay. Okay? Go, 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 go. Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Reset, Taliesin and Evitel's Wondrous Wisdomshow. And today, we have got massive news and reveals for Battle for Azeroth, release dates, the level squish, that new allied race, which is such an open secret it may as well be on the launcher at this point, and new developments and Alterac fun times in Classic. It really is one of those very World of Warcraft days today. But we start, as always recently, with Tentacle Watch. What developments have we seen from our favourite optical head appendage, the Gift of N'Zoth? Because I know that you've been waiting on the edge of your seat for me to tell you what's been happening, because I know you cleansed that veiny bonnet the second you got it, and you're relying on me to pass on the word of our tentacle overlords for you. Which, now I think of it, kind of makes me like an old god prophet, or dare I say it, Jesus? I mean, I would never compare myself to Jesus, obviously that would be stupid. I'm just saying, in this instance, the comparison is there. Should anyone else want to make it? Anyway, the short answer is nothing, and the long answer is absolutely nothing, because since those whispers started, there has been no change at all in their frequency, apart from that initial downgrade from incessant to every now and then. No extra volume, no extra importance. Basically, I'm thinking Tentacle Watch may have been a bad idea, and I think we all know the reason for that, don't we? It's because of patch 8.2, the Rise of Azshara, which resolutely refuses to be released or even officially announced. Azshara did not rise this week, people. She will probably not be rising next week. She's currently lying the shit down, relaxing, and doing the sum total of 0 rising. We talked at length last week about the damage that 8.2's seemingly late release may be causing, and I think these whispers suddenly appearing, but then not really doing anything, could well be a sign that Blizz really had planned to get this patch out there by now, but for some reason, or combination of reasons, that just hasn't happened like it was supposed to. This is complete speculation, obviously, and maybe I'm totally wrong. That's the first time for everything. I just can't see how this could possibly have been the plan, you know? And then I can't help but wonder what it is that's gone wrong. Was there something that just wasn't finished in time? Something they realised didn't work that they wanted to do over? Is it true that my friends at Blizz were very politely waiting for me to reach level 50 on my Heart of Azeroth? It's unlikely, I admit, but I guess not entirely impossible. So, Internet, you'll be very pleased to know that this week I knuckled down on islands, world quests, Warfront contribution hand-ins, yes, even the ones that aren't just gold or resources. I'm talking shit like stirrups and ammunition and stuff I was handing in. Yeah, seriously, I ran Heroic Desire Lore specifically to spend 5 bonus rolls for the Azerite Consolation Prize. Plan that, by the way, was almost ruined when I actually rolled actual loot, and great, so now I'm rolling loot, thanks. And finally, fittingly, the world quest that got me to 50 was a Scroll Sage Nola Turtles making it to the water one. But the point is, I'm there now, Blizz, so if you could very kindly give Azshara a prod and tell her it's time to rise, that would be splendid, thanks a lot. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that Blizzard were waiting for me personally to hit 50 on my Heart of Azeroth. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I did hit 50, and then the latest 8.2 PTR build was marked as a release candidate, which means it could now basically drop at any time. And I'm not saying that happened because I got my neck to 50. Obviously, I'm just saying I got my neck to 50 and then Blizzard indicated that the patch was ready to go. That's all I'm saying. And these tiny 2 words right here, unofficial though they are, vague though they are enough to get just a little bit excited about, in my opinion, because I can almost smell 8.2 on the sea air. I've been telling everyone on stream all week that I am absolutely 100% convinced that Rise of Azshara is going to launch on the 25th of June. And with this new PTR build, well, that looks like it may even happen. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see an Ian and Law Q&A Super Thursday special get announced very soon. Maybe a little cinematic of Horde and Alliance fleets falling down a big hole in the sea to whet our appetites. Who knows? Well, someone, somewhere, surely must know, surely. But even if that 8.2 date remains elusive for now, we did get one big announcement this week. It's looking like the next expansion, 9.0 Tuskars of the Black Empire, will involve a level squish. And this news was confirmed not by an Ian and Law Thursday Super Special, not by a Blue Post or Blizzard panel, but by a survey sent out to seemingly random WoW players that included the question, are you aware that the maximum level of 120 will be reduced in the future, i.e. level squish? Which, all in all, is a pretty unromantic way of doing things, isn't it? It's like proposing via post-it note on the front gate for your partner to see when they take the bins out in the evening. And thanks to Patrick Kinehines, who sent this to us on Twitter so early on the 12th that I'm actually pretty sure we were among the first people to know about it. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, if that's the case, how come you didn't make a video about it in the week? Because this is massive news. It has potential to fundamentally and completely change the game forever. It is just a thing that you like to talk about. Why did you wait until now, after everyone else has already got their videos out? Why are you always the last, Taliesin? Why are you absolutely the worst YouTuber? And that's a good point, except please, may I remind you that actually, no, we weren't the last WoW YouTubers to tell you about this stat squish. We were the first. When Ian casually mentioned the idea in an offhand way back in March, we told you then. It's actually a pretty big deal that this is even a topic of conversation in a Q&A, because make no mistake, okay, if Ian is talking about this now, and so thoroughly, this shit is happening. Yes, I think this could be happening as soon as next expansion. I feel there's like a whole separate discussion to have about this topic, but I just wanted to put it out there because with all the other excitement this week, it isn't something that people have been talking about. And I think we should, because I genuinely believe this is happening. So be ready. And to think there were comments on that video accusing me of clickbaiting. Honestly, if the idea of a level squish is a surprise to you at this point, then you really need to watch more Weekly Reset, you know? But somewhere you didn't find any surprise at all was the forums, who took this news with its complete lack of details or specifics as a jumping off point for some really interesting discussions about what a level squish might look like and how it would work. There was a real consensus among users that honestly it's pointless passing judgment on a change that exists in name only and that really none of us know the first thing about, and instead I found reading through the comments genuinely inspiring as a buzz of real excitement washed over the... No, it was a shit show. Obviously. Hell no! That kind of fist things. I say no, we don't want of that. Just stop already with the idiocy. Like, how fishing dumb do you have to be at this point? What was the point of us leveling up all these years then? This is by far the worst idea they've ever had. They will fist it up tremendously. They don't care anymore about WoW. They just want you to buy their expansions so they can promise you rainbows and unicorns and people still believe them. They should fire Ian. That would be a nice ending to all the awful things he's doing with his ideas to the game. I don't like this. Now look, all joking aside, I completely understand any and all trepidation that players have about this idea, because it really is a big deal. But first things first, what actually is a level squish? Well, just to be clear, because I have seen some confusion on this, it is not a standard stat or item level squish. We've had those before at various points, most recently as we moved from Legion into BfA, where the item levels of the gear that we were wearing changed from somewhere in the 900s to somewhere in the 100s. A level squish, though, has never been done before in World of Warcraft, and would presumably involve the maximum level of our characters themselves reducing. So obviously at the moment we are all level 120, if we don't count your abandoned level 46 Nightborn Mage, and really I don't think we should we? But a level squish would likely see your max level character, the one that you've been playing since day one, the one that you sweated blood through all 120 levels for, the one with literal years on your slash blade, even though whole weeks of that was spent jumping up and down on the spot in Orgrimmar, they all count, wake up on the dawn of 9.0 sitting at, say, level 60. That might sound outrageous, but genuinely, I think if this were to happen, then it would be as drastic a reduction as that. I think it would go all the way down to 60, because that just makes sense. For one, it's the simplest maths to just be able to half everything that exists now. There's a pleasing traditional clarity to 60, with it being the original max level of the game, and frankly, a level squish is going to be such an absolutely massive ball ache of an undertaking for the devs that they really aren't going to want to repeat that again in a hurry. So I think anything less just wouldn't really be worth the hassle. So it seems pretty sensible to me that current max level players will be squished to 60, and 9.0 will raise the level cap to 70, giving us that sweet spot 10 levels to quest through next expansion. And I know what you're thinking, the most obvious worry, well hang on, I just lost 60 levels, that's bullshit, you just took away 60 levels, this is outrageous, Blizz, except they haven't really, have they? Max level players are still max level. Characters halfway to max level are still halfway to max level. You may have literally lost the number of levels you had, but you haven't lost the progress. So the idea that players will be getting their years of hard work taken away isn't accurate, even though I do totally sympathise with the visceral gut reaction that many of us will have that tells us we are losing it. And so if what I've just said is true and there's no actual difference between 120 levels and a freshly squished 60, there's another pretty obvious question that springs to mind, isn't there? Why have a level squish at all? What are the advantages? What will it achieve? Well, since there are currently no actual details, we don't know yet if this would make leveling a bit quicker or slower or whatever, so we can't really comment on that side of things yet, but something that definitely would happen. At the moment, a fresh level 1 character is going to be getting a new spell or ability on average every 2 to 4 levels up to level 60, and then considerably less after that, with a new talent every 15 levels on top. If a level squish half the amount of levels, then obviously now a fresh character is getting a new ability every 1 or 2 levels, and a new talent every 7 or 8 levels. And even if it takes the exact same amount of time to get to the new level 30 as it does the current level 60, I suspect it wouldn't, by the way, I suspect it would be a bit quicker, but you know, it is at the least psychologically more rewarding to be getting new abilities when you ding. It's one of the reasons that having a new talent point to spend every level feels good in Classic, and this will happen twice as much after the squish. Now obviously I have other issues with leveling way beyond the frequency that we gain new spells. I still want to see the damage that enemy mobs do scale higher so that the world we level in is more dangerous, but getting something every time you level, and that means artifact or Heart of Azeroth levels as well, is so important to the brain of an RPG player, I think. So that's one thing that I would be totally in favour of. It's a whole lot less overwhelming for new players too, obviously, to be joining a game where you only have 60 levels to catch up on, rather than 120, and that honestly is pretty much all we can say for certain about the pros or cons until we have more concrete information. And if you want my opinion on the stat squish, then I can only say that yes, I'm in favour of it if it's done well, and no, I'm against it if it's done badly. So people have raised concerns about farming old content, but that shouldn't be an issue if it's implemented properly. But you know, maybe it won't be implemented properly and there will be an issue, who can tell? But allow me, if you will, to speculate for a minute as to how I would like this to pan out. Because one thing Classic has really kind of hammered home to lots of us recently is how scattered and unfocused the leveling experience is for fresh characters. You start a new Horde character, for example, and you make your way to Orgrimmar, where War Chief Sylvanas is complaining that all her ships were destroyed by the Legion, but start questing and you'll soon have War Chief Garrosh moaning in your ear about honour and shit, and no one can quite work out if Vol'jin is alive or dead. It's just a total mess. Add to that the fact that you never really play through any real story. Most characters level by doing a few old world zones, and then the first 2 or 3 zones of Outland or Wrath, and then the first 2 or 3 zones of Mists or Kata, as little of WoD as humanly possible, and then Legion invasions to 110. There is no coherent narrative that we have, no defined story that new characters can live or create, and along with the lack of danger in the open world, I think that is the absolute biggest problem with leveling in current World of Warcraft. Now, there's a danger that the level squish could make that a lot worse, of course. If it did slightly speed up leveling, as many people hope it will, then the narrative experience could easily become even more fragmented and piecemeal, and even more detached non-adventure as you spend even less time in each expansion. But there's a chance it could go the other way too. What if, and hear me out on this one, okay, what if, with the level squish, Blizzard did away with the need to take a new character through a whistle-stop tour of every old expansion and made it so you only needed to do one? What if, in our new 60 level system, level 1 to 20 was the same as 1 to 40 is now? The starting zone, a couple of big zones in the old world next to it while you unlock the majority of your abilities, start on talents, get a fast mount, unlock queuable dungeons, a point it takes me around 8 hours to get to on a new tune these days. But once you hit level 20, every single expansion continent, Outland, Northrend, the Cataclysm zones, Pandaria, AU Draenor, the Broken Isles, Kultiris and Zandalar, scales from 20 to 60 after that. And what if every one of those continents has enough XP through its questing content to get you to 60? So at level 20, what you can do if you want is experience one expansion in its entirety, one complete story with all its quests and immersion, developments, and just as important, conclusion, and that would be enough to see you through to 60 and the current content. So at 20, you could choose to go to Northrend and play the story of the Wrath of the Lich King, recapturing the land, competing in the Argent tournament, and mounting the assault on Icecrown. Or Pandaria and play through those story quests that took years to write and develop and make, and live that story in its entirety, expanding out into the Isle of Thunder at later levels, or Legion taking in the Argus content at later levels, or, yes, sorry, but this would be really good, BfA, and play those really excellent stories and war campaign, taking in all of their zones like the story intended and having one single, coherent, consistent, meaningful adventure on your way to level 60. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, that means that a new player misses every other expansion. What a waste of all that good old content. To which I say, yeah, but right now, a new player misses every expansion, because they do a random snippet of Outland and then a random snippet of Cataclysm stuff. All that awesome content is totally wasted now. Allowing a player to choose one expansion to completely level through and do it properly would be the first time in years that all those quests and characters and locations and gameplay weren't totally wasted. And at the end of it, you have a character that has had something resembling a meaningful RPG experience. For a seasoned player, it would make leveling an alt from scratch potentially a whole lot more interesting, because yeah, I can only speak for myself here, but honestly, the thought of being able to just level through the entirety of Mists of Pandaria is a lot more enticing than having to expansion hop through some weird timey-wimey incoherent fever dream. But the real winners will be the new players, because at level 20, they get to go and do the rest of their leveling by properly playing through WoD or Legion or BfA. Expansions which, from a graphical, questing, and leveling perspective, are miles ahead of older content and show the game at its best as it is now, not how janky and lacking polygons it was 13 years ago. Give them a chance to choose something shiny and new-ish like Legion, or properly experience the legendary Lich King storyline as it was supposed to be. Let them have a proper coherent experience on their way to 60 and get them ready for the newest 60 to 70 adventure. When I think about how a level squish could make that or something like it possible, yeah, I begin to come out in favour of the level squish, and I start to think it could be a really valuable improvement to the whole game and the world we play it in. So yeah, I guess if they do it exactly how I want them to, count me in for the level squish. Official. Excellent, good section, Tally. Now, it was at this point that Evitel was going to come on and talk about the Alterac Valley testing that's been happening on the Classic Beta this weekend. But yeah, the battles last forever, like literally hours running into days, and no one seems to know exactly what's going on. So I'd say it's working pretty much as intended. And the hilarious Wowhead discovery that Vulpera models have been added to the code for in-game cutscenes. You know those in-game cutscenes that show your character getting involved, which are the best cutscenes because they have your character in? Yeah, those. Now, if Blizzrd were to announce tomorrow that Vulpera was set to become an allied race, then the player base would react with about as much shock as if Belialar announced on Twitter that he had a new video or two releasing today. But this would really seem to be the final nail in the Vulpera as an allied race doubt coffin, really, wouldn't it? Face it, fam, they're coming, they're furry, get used to it. All I ask is, oh god, all I ask, please let them be a horde race. And you know why, just please. But one of the advantages of this episode being delayed by the surprise lack of Evitel is that we can actually include an extra bonus unexpected story that broke while I was in the middle of editing all of this, which is the news that it's been discovered on the PTR that if a player has their experience turned off and teams up with another player for a dungeon or island expedition, those other members of the group will receive experience at a 95% reduced rate. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Taliesin, if I'm a no XP Twinkie Super Twink Twink star, why on earth would I be running dungeons, or let's be perfectly shitting frank about this, island expeditions seriously anyway? And that's a good question that you're clearly only asking because you are not aware of how remarkably quick and easy it is to level a 110 character up to 120 if a totally legendary and Legion mega geared 110 Demon Hunter Twink takes you into islands or Freehold and destroys everything while you sit there racking up free XP. But I'm here to tell you, you poor sweet innocent summer child, that yes, that is very easy and it happens a lot, and it's a major part of the gold carry economy. So this change means that instead of handing a Twinked Demon Hunter hundreds of thousands of gold to level you while you do literally no playing of the game, you have to play the game. And even if I suspect that some particularly geared Demon Hunters are upset about this, it's good to see a much calmer reaction to the news on the forums, where players remembered that yesterday they were all saying how the reason Classic is the best game is because leveling is so much more involved, and no, it was a shit show, obviously. Honestly, what moron at Blizzrd gets these stupid ideas? Why the fish would this be added to the game? Ian was sitting on a Q&A stating that metrics, player time, etc. don't matter. Well, now you can eat up your own shit, mate. I smell a Bobby. Gotta sell more level boosts. At least now we have a reason to buy boosts in the store again. The only reason I can see this happening is Blizz will sell 120 boosts. Okay, first up, I can promise you that if this change does go live, it isn't to sell 120 boosts, okay? And I know that because 120 boosts don't exist. They won't exist until the pre-order for next expansion goes live. So that's one surprisingly common misconception solved. Another is who this will affect. Will this, for example, affect your max level friend boosting you through dungeons and raids for super quick leveling fun times? No, it won't. It only applies to groups that include a character that has specifically turned their XP off, which of course 120s don't have to do. Will this kill off the 110 to 120 gold carry economy? It shouldn't. No, we're at the stage in the expansion now where a well-geared 120 Demon Hunter can do the job just as well as a 1-twinked 110, so you can get to max level without playing the game if you want. More interestingly, is this going to be used by total dicks to grief other players by turning their XP off, joining random LFG pugs, and stopping everyone else getting XP? Maybe. Yeah. Maybe it could, but the debuff that you get stopping your normal XP gains when one of those sneaky Pete's are in your group isn't a secret. You can see it and you can kick or you can leave, but actually there's a much simpler way to solve that potential problem, and that's to have the XP reduction apply only to players that are in a party with a Twink, not a group. That way, if you were randomly put with one in a dungeon or island or LFR, it wouldn't even affect you at all. And with that in mind, I find it hard to get too excited or upset about this change. I mean, I can't pretend that I understand the thinking of people that want to bypass leveling and literally stand still in Freehold for 2 hours while someone kills trash over and over, but I get that some people think it's fun, and yeah, you can still do that, so I don't see a problem. I mean, I have every class at 120, which is quite easy to be honest, and done without any exploits or carries or anything, but whatever. Maybe we'll have more on this next week if there are any more developments, as well as a real-life Evitel in the flesh too, if we're like super really lucky. And of course, as always, if you'd like to know more about any of the stories that I talked about this episode, especially those that we didn't get to do a full segment on, the relevant Wowhead articles will be linked in the description below. But thanks for joining us today. Sorry it was a weird one, but if you did enjoy this episode, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to make all of these videos happen. In fact, whenever you had to bail, we weren't even going to make this episode at all, but we thought of the patrons and we thought of their little disappointed faces, and that's what got me through and why this episode is with you at all. So thanks, guys. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Grimwave. No, my name is Taliesin from me and Evitel. Until next time, cheerio.